Some people say what a man can do, a woman can do better. Others say behind every successful man, there is a woman. But long before colonization, long before modern politics, there were African women who did not stand behind power, they were the power. Today, we're telling the stories of African women who shaped political systems long before colonialism. Before colonial rule, Africa was home to advanced political systems. There were empires, kingdoms, councils, and military states. And in many of these societies, women were not excluded from power. In some places, women were the power. Historians agree that African leadership was not always based on gender. It was based on wisdom, strategy, courage, and service to the people. Let us meet some of these women. First on the list, we have Queen Amina of Zazzau, present-day Nigeria. Queen Amina was one of the most powerful rulers in African history. She ruled in the 16th century, and her rulership was so strong that her name is still remembered till today. Queen Amina did not inherit power quietly. She earned it through warfare and expansion. She led her army all by herself. She conquered many new territories. She expanded trade routes across northern Nigeria. Many historians, including Professor Abdullahi Smith, described Queen Amina as a military genius who reshaped Hausa political power. The famous Amina walls, defensive structures built around cities, are named after her. Queen Amina showed that African women were not just leaders, they were strategists. We also have Yaa Asantewaa of the Ashanti Empire, present-day Ghana. Yaa Asantewaa was not born a queen. She was a queen mother, a political advisor, and decision maker. When British forces tried to take the Golden Stool, the sacred symbol of Ashanti power, many male leaders hesitated. But Yaa Asantewaa stood up. She said a powerful line that many historians still quote until today. She said, "If you, the men of Ashanti, will not go forward, then we will. We, the women, will fight." She led the War of the Golden Stool in 1900. She organized armies, she planned resistance, and she defended the Ashanti sovereignty. Even British records themselves describe her as the brain behind the resistance. Yaa Asantewaa proved that African women were political mobilizers and defenders of national identity. On this list, we also have Queen Nzinga Mbande of Ndongo and Matamba, present-day Angola. Queen Nzinga is one of Africa's greatest diplomats. She ruled in the 17th century and faced Portuguese expansion. Instead of surrendering, she used intelligence, negotiation, and strategy. One famous story says that when the Portuguese refused to give her a chair during negotiations, she sat on the back of a servant, showing that she would not accept disrespect. European historians like Jane Louis Castillon described her as one of the most brilliant political minds that Africa ever produced. She formed alliances, she reorganized her military, and she ruled for decades. Queen Nzinga proved that African women mastered international politics long before modern diplomacy. Fourth on the list, we have Makeda, the Queen of Sheba, ancient Ethiopia. The Queen of Sheba, who is known as Makeda, ruled one of the richest kingdoms of the ancient world. Her story appears in Ethiopian history, the Bible, and ancient texts. She was known for wisdom, wealth, and trade power. She controlled major trade routes connecting Africa, Arabia, and Middle East. An historian named Edward Uhlendorf described her kingdom as a political and economic powerhouse of the ancient world. Makeda showed that African women were not only warriors, they were economic and diplomatic leaders. And lastly on this list, we have Amanirenas, the Kandake of Nubia. Amanirenas was a warrior queen of the Kingdom of Kush. She led armies against the Roman empires, one of the strongest empires in history. She defeated Roman forces and forced them into peace that favored Nubia. Roman historians recorded her as a one-eyed queen who refused submission. Imagine that, an African woman defeating Rome. This is power. These stories tells us that these women were not exceptions. They were products of African system that allowed women to lead. African societies understood that leadership was about ability and not gender. And because of this, a famous historian once said, African civilization recognized balance, masculine and feminine power working together. When we know our history, we walk differently, we speak differently, and we see ourselves differently. African women have always been leaders. African societies have always been organized. African power did not begin with colonial contracts. It existed long before. If this video taught you something new, if you felt proud hearing these stories, and if you believe African history deserves to be told fully and truly, then subscribe to African Hamlet. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and tell us in the comments, which African woman should we tell her story next? Because every story deserves to live on. Welcome to African Hamlet, where Africa's true legacy is remembered, where African myths, legends, stories, pre-colonial history, and innovations are told. Welcome to a world of adventure.